Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us today. Here's what we got. We got Congress. They have approved the first big rollback we've ever seen of Dodd Frank. That's great. So, the possibility, we'll take a look at the possibility and the likelihood of a Tea Party on the left, and Betsy DeVos, she's not doing so great. She's not doing so hot at the moment. We'll talk about her inability to answer some pretty simple questions very, very recently. So this is not just the 60 Minutes interview that took place, but it's new stuff that she is not doing very well in at all. So there is that for you today. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm going to get right into it. So Congress, they have now approved officially a major rollback to the Dodd Frank legislation. So that's a bunch of fun. A decade after the global crisis tipped the United States into a recession, Congress agreed on Tuesday to free thousands of small and medium-sized banks from the strict rules that have been enacted as part of a 2010 Dodd-Frank law to prevent another meltdown. So in a rare demonstration of bipartisanship, the House voted 258 to 159, which is pretty crazy. Because here's the thing that I'll tell you. Like, when you talk about bipartisanship in Washington, here's the thing you always complain about. You always hear complaints about, bipartisanship, it's just the worst. Oh, we don't get it anymore. It wouldn't be nice if we had some sort of bipartisanship here. I mean, honestly, Jesus Christ. Why can't we get just a little bit of bipartisanship? And then all of a sudden, you get bipartisanship. It's probably over all the more Republican issues. Like, I've never seen a Democratic priority issue that the Republicans have exercised bipartisanship for. For example, I mean, even like a Hillary Clinton issue that she supports that Republicans just don't support, like gay marriage or whatever. Like, there has never been any sort of bipartisanship on that front. Like, the courts have pretty much had to ram it through. Like, there is no bipartisanship for the Democrats, only bipartisanship for Republican issues, and pretty much the only two issues are more war and things to do with more war, and, like, for example, Gina Haspel, and also helping Wall Street, because, again, who funds most of their campaigns? Wall Street. Yeah. So that's how you know there's the problem. So anyway, yeah, we're still getting that dilemma there as well. That's the big problem we are working with at the moment. So as we know, and by the way, just want to let you know we have changed now our story, so we're gonna keep you in suspense as to what our last story is here. So that'll be fun. So yeah, the bill stops here. The Dodd Frank bill stops far short of unwinding the toughened regulatory regime put in place to prevent the nation's biggest banks from engaging in risk behavior. I mean, it doesn't unravel the whole thing. Is pretty much what they're saying, but does unravel a lot of it. It represents a watering down of Obama-era rules governing a large swath of the banking system. The legislation will leave fewer than 10 big banks in the United States subject to stricter federal oversight, freeing thousands of banks with less than $250 billion in assets from a post-crisis crackdown that they have claimed too onerous. So I think something tells me that the banks and the economy is doing pretty well if you look at the stock market. Like, we're getting the sense that the banks and the economy and everyone else, they're doing quite all right. Like, you get the sense we can kind of not really worry about what their status is at the moment. If you get my drift here, like, they're not freaking out. They're not flipping out over, like, the stock market's not plummeting. They're not suffering from any kind of major need of regulation. Let's just put it that way. So, and the fact that, which again makes the fact that this would be happening all the more weird and annoying and relatively unnecessary. So, yeah, so the legislation, again, it's just going to leave 10 fewer big banks. I wonder which banks are going to be freed here. Republican lawmakers and the banking industry, makes sense. They are always normally in lockstep. Cheered a measure they said would help unshackle banks and the economy from regulatory burdens. So, yeah, they are, they're thinking this is going to get them out of them in quite a good way. So, Paul Ryan said, the House Speaker and Wisconsin Republican said the bill's passage was a step towards freeing our economy from overregulation. Our smaller banks are engines of growth. He said in the statement. Yeah, so smaller banks when there's 10 big banks still included, like there's got to be some major banks that are released here. So I mean, I hate to be kind of just stalling here because we are live. What I'm going to do is right now I'm going to take banks with less than $250 billion in assets. Yeah, so there is the scrapping the $50 billion threshold left. So yeah, the deregulate 30 large. This is back from December 18th, 2017. So this is a bill, the Systematic Designation and Improvement Act. So this is supposed to clear $50 billion, and I do want to look at this here. Doesn't even say the banks. Can we get a list of bank here, people? I do want to know which banks here are going to be left off the hook, because I mean, if I've heard of them before, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit weird. Like, why are we letting these banks go before? If it's like someone community savings bank, I get it, but I'm getting the sense it is really, really not. Like, we're not really worrying about that. So the $15 billion threshold is gone now. The $250 billion threshold is now gone. And so pretty much everything under $250 billion is pretty much going to be freed in assets. So yeah, so Bank of, I'm trying to get a list of here. HSBC HSBC has SunTrust is another one. 203 for SunTrust, 195,000 for those two. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we that's pretty much what we know about them. So there's also Goldman Sachs will be freed, Chase Bank, Morgan Stanley looks like it'll be freed, unless I'm reading something wrong here, which is certainly possible. So I mean, it just shows you, like, a lot of these banks, Santander, Comerica, another Morgan Stanley, and People's United, First Citizens, Barclays. I mean, these are all banks that could have the possibility to be freed now that this bill has passed here, freed from these stress test regulations that a lot of people do business with on a broader international scale here. So that's very, very worrying. And once you get the sense like they're deregulating those kind of banks and not like some dinky little community bank, is a lot more worrying. So yeah, the push to alter even a portion of Dodd Frank so soon after the crisis, just ahead of the midterms elections, has pitted Democratic lawmakers against one another. Party leaders are eager to present a united front to voters in November and are wary of losing on a signature issue that has, thank God, now been made a signature issue. I mean, if you get the sense Hillary Clinton was president, we would not be having this discussion. So, I mean, in a weird way, that does kind of help with the Trump presidency. Like, bringing this very, very important issue up for debate is very good. And, like, we need to talk about this. And with Hillary Clinton, we wouldn't have had the conversation. Would have been very, very safe, to say the least. But yeah, the Dodd Frank bill was a Democratic-led initiative that passed with the support of just 3 Republicans. and had been under constant attack from the Republicans ever since. So left-leaning senators like Senator Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown of Ohio have blasted their more moderate colleagues like Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota for supporting this new legislation, and Democratic leaders have tried to prevent any lawmakers from crossing the aisle to support the bill. So, I mean, finally, normally this, if there's, you could have stopped them from crossing the aisle when it came to Gina Haspel, if that was the Senate, but, that was the Senate, but still, it's the same point. So Nancy Pelosi actually with a strong quote here. It's a bill under the guise of helping community banks. The bill would take us back to the days when unchecked recklessness on Wall Street ignited a historic financial meltdown. So she's coming out strong. She's coming out as a strong no against this, and that's something that I do like to see. And so the main point is you need to take away another big blow for major Wall Street banks. Don't let anyone tell you this is not a big gift to major banks, because it is. And we just read you the list there. These are the large commercial banks. Excuse me. Capital One. I'm going to read them out here. So this is controlled at consolidated assets, and domestic assets. For example, I'll just read the consolidated assets. $2 million for J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank National /Citigroup, Capital One. I'm just trying to read the banks here that I have personally heard of. SunTrust, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, KeyBank, Ally, Morgan Stanley, Citizens Bank, Capital One again, another division, I guess. BMO Harris, BNB Paribas USA, First Republic, Santander, People's United, let's see, Barclays, and more. So, and a lot more. Raymond James, another one. Another division of Bank of America. I could go way on here. So, it's from the Federal Reserve statistics. So, it is not a good sign. These are some of the banks that are going to be deregulated by this move. Coming up next, is there a possibility, that a left Tea Party can overthrow the Democratic establishment? Find out next. This is the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Your show will return in just 4 minutes.
Pendo on the beat.